Yo, yo, what's up?
Tick tock, time to rock. Tick tock, time to rock. Hey, how's everyone
Tick,
doing?
tick, 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 tock, time to rock. Tick
Yo, yo,
tock,
yo,
time
yo,
to
yo,
rock. Yeah, yeah,
yo,
tick
yo,
tock, time to
yo,
rock.
yo,
Yeah,
yo, yo, yo.
yeah, what's up?
Hey, how's everyone doing? We're going to talk about Ilhan Omar today. Seems that some people who go into politics have a pretty messed up agenda, and that it eventually comes out over time. It starts slipping out. The real what's really going on starts slipping out, and then people point it out, and then they're called racist for pointing out the
Indeed, indeed.
obvious. The issue in politics is once you are elected based on how well you appeal to people, you're going to end up saying whatever will get you elected. Right? You're not going to say necessarily what is right or even what you really believe. You're going to say what's going to get you elected,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's just dangerous. That's just dangerous stuff. So that's dangerous in general. That's why I'm a little creeped out by politicians in general. But then if that's combined with, and we actually have complete loyalty to the system that wants to overthrow you or to another country or something like that, then it's like, this is worse than a regular politician. It seems like every 6 months to a year, Ilhan Omar says something that upsets a lot of people, and then people react to it. And there's the latest stuff that we're going to take a look at, and we're going to see how rough this stuff is. I'm going to lower this volume level, and I'm going to read the subtitles. She said, "We love each other. There are areas of friction, and that led us to kill each other." Yeah, you guys had big wars. But in reality, we are an organized society. Yeah, it's paradise. Brothers and sisters, people of the same blood, people who know they are Somalians first. Somalians first, Muslims second. Whoa, I don't know how people didn't flip out about that one. You see that?
that's rough. You know what I find funny about all of this? What is very funny about all of this is that, obviously here in the West, when you have a person who happens to be a voice for Somalis, um, it is a woman. However, if you check Somalia, for example, it is like one of the worst places in the world for women, in terms of women's rights. But of course, this is a Western thing, that in the West, in America, you would have a woman speaking for the Somalians. It's such a bizarre irony here, uh, that you would then hold on to that identity instead of, embracing this very culture that makes a woman, that brings a woman to the forefront and gives her the ability to be the face of the people.
Yeah, and aren't they? Isn't Somalia like the global capital of female genital mutilation? Isn't that like?
Yeah,
Isn't that FGM Central right there, Somalia?
yeah, it might be the highest or one of the highest, in terms of number of people getting female genital mutilation.
We are Somalians first, Muslims second, who protect one another, come to each other's aid, and to the aid of other Muslims too. And the other thing that's really messed up about this, so I mean Somalia, and we've had Somali Christian TV. They're both converts from Islam to Christianity, and they point out, I mean, Somalia could actually be like, like a paradise in Africa. It has everything it needs. It's just it's just constantly fighting. It's just constantly fighting over jihadis who want full on 100% Sharia, and Muslims who don't want to go that extreme.
It's so funny. It is, Somalia is at one of the richest, most desirable places of the eastern coast of Africa. So you're correct there. Actually, the eastern coast in general is quite a rich one that has a lot of potential, but because of all the infighting and all the imbalance, all the inability to focus on actually doing something, they are always miserable, and that's what separates those cultures from Western culture.
Notice one, you have Somalia is a Sharia compliant hellhole that is being ripped apart by various factions. She's someone who had to leave because her family was on the wrong side from the worst group. So they had to flee. They got asylum in the U.S. So she comes here, gets to go to school, eventually becomes a congresswoman. And you can see from these clips, her ultimate loyalty is to Somalia, the place her family had to flee because it's so freaking violent. And she's about to make it clear that's who she's really working for, which is very, very interesting. A couple days ago, we heard some people who call themselves Somalis. They call themselves Somalis. This is one of the fights that's going on there. Somaliland. Or claim to be Somalis have signed an, what is that, MOU? With Ethiopia on access to the sea. So some sort of contract or something like that. MOU.
A memorandum of understanding.
Is that what it is? Or did you just make that up? Oh, okay, you're right. Memorandum of understanding. Or claim to be Somalis have signed a memorandum of understanding with Ethiopia on access to the sea. So Somali has various disputes going on. There's this issue when it comes to Somaliland and Ethiopia. Agreement. Oh, she forgot the word for agreement. So she says, my grasp of the Somali language is atrocious, maybe because you had to flee that country because it's a war-torn, Sharia-compliant hellhole, and you wanted to get as far out of there as possible. She's. What a shame. Again, and uncomfortable laughter at the writing. Many Somalians have personally called me to encourage me to speak to the U.S. government to thwart that agreement with Ethiopia and help Somalia. So people are contacting her. Hey, you're in Congress. Can you help Somalia here? They wanted to know what the U.S. government could do for Somalia to ensure the memorandum of understanding never turns into a full bilateral agreement. So U.S. is supposed to jump in there. My answer to the Somalians was that the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. So the UN is going to intervene on behalf of Somalians who are opposed to an agreement with Ethiopia. And the U.S. is going to jump in there and say, no, Ethiopia, we won't allow this deal. I guess that's what it looks like. And so she's going to be pushing in the U.S. to do this on behalf of Somalians who are opposed to some deal with Ethiopia. So the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. The U.S. government will do nothing else except what we Somalians order them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. Dang. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. The U.S. government is going to do nothing except follow our orders, and that's how we're going to safeguard the interest of Somalia. So Americans,
that's a bit much.
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore. Somalis, so her included, Somalis in the U.S. are going to give orders to the U.S. government to carry out the will of Somalia against places like Ethiopia. That is exactly what she's saying. But quick, we Somalians must have that confidence in ourselves that we call the shots in the U.S. Dang. We call the shots in the U.S. We live in the U.S., pay taxes in the U.S., and have a real voice. So since you pay taxes in the U.S., you get to call the shots for the U.S. government on behalf of a foreign nation against another foreign nation, which is just weird because they're Ethiopians who live in the U.S. and pay their taxes and so on. The U.S. is a country where one of your daughters, myself, is in Congress to represent your interests. That, you catch that, man?
Mm-hmm.
She's supposed to be a U.S. citizen representing the interests of U.S. citizens in her district, and yet she's representing the interests of Somalians in Somalia.
We have a congresswoman who, just because she is from Somalia,
A place her
promises,
family fled.
yeah, promises her fellow Somalians that she is here as a representative in order to impose upon the United States an intervention policy toward their homeland, Somalia, just because they are Somalians and it's in their own best interest. So the US doesn't actually have any benefits from this at all. It serves no purpose. It is just a this congresswoman's loyalty here at play that simply decides what is happening, which is very, very weird. And the conflict, I mean, I just looked up the conflict very briefly, and it's not even like a humanitarian situation or anything like that. It is just it is a territorial conflict where one side, the Somalians, don't accept the other Somalian state's existence and their right to be independent. And here a woman who is in Congress thinks, oh, I am here, no problem, don't worry, guys, I am here. And since I am part of the American government, I will make sure that as America, we will police the world on behalf of Somalia in our best interest.
You got a couple things. The idea that this is like planned ahead of time, like a conspiracy, let's get this woman in power. I seriously doubt that. More like she comes here, because her family gets asylum, goes through school, but still has connections in Somalia, and she's going to talk in some of the clips we're going to watch, where she's with the Prime Minister of Somalia, where she's talking about what a good relationship she has with the President of Somalia, and so it looks like she's just in good with guys who are in the government of Somalia and who are telling her what to do. So, hey, you need to go seek this for us. We really don't. So as you were pointing out, like, what's the interest of the United States? I'm all in favor of helping people when you can. So if the U.S. can help Somalis somehow, or help Ethiopians somehow, totally happy to do that. But, okay, if you have a conflict between Somalia and Ethiopia, it sounds like she's saying, we in the U.S. will push the U.S. to seek the good of Somalia against Ethiopia. Like, what is the U.S. interest in siding with Somalia over Ethiopia? I do not see that. Why in the name of common sense would we do that? For as long as I am in the U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. My goodness, dude. Somalia will never be in danger. So if Somalia is in danger, so if Ethiopia decides to start a fight with Somalia, the U.S. is going to stop that and protect Somalia. If whatever is happening to Somalia, the U.S. is actually going to go in there and protect it. Somalia will never be in danger. As long as she's in Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will never be stolen by Ethiopia or others. So the U.S. is going to come to the aid of Somalia against any other nation who's competing for, area in the waters or something like that.
Congress joogo wadanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan.
The U.S. would not dare to support anyone against Somalia to steal our land or oceans. Would not happen. Why? Because your hero, super jihadist herself, Ilhan Omar, is in Congress calling the shots on behalf of Somalia. Okay, if you're in Congress, you have some power. You do not have this kind of power, right? It seems like she's appealing to the audience, bragging like, hey, because I am in Congress, I get to call shots for the U.S. government. You kind of have to get, a bunch of people in Congress agreeing with you, Ilhan, in order to get the U.S. to do certain things. But it just sounds like she's just boasting to the audience, hey, since I'm in Congress, you guys don't know how Congress works, but it makes me feel good if I'm the hero, and I'll just say, I call the shots here. It's like I'm like president of the United States, basically. Sleep in comfort, knowing I am here. Why? Why are you here? I am here to protect the interests of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. To kind of offset this, we need a congressperson who has fled Ethiopia.
Marka taas ka seexda reer Minnesota gabadhii Congress-a u dirsateen
The woman, myself, you sent to Congress is working day and night. For who? To protect your interest.
idinka
working
warhaysaa
for you.
sidaad idinka u
She knows your plight and that of Somalia.
dareemaysiin dantaas ay u
I
dareemayeen
am as concerned about Somalia as you guys are.
madaxweyne xasan sheekhna
Together we will protect the interests of Somalia. President Hassan Sheikh, the current president of Somalia, has done a remarkable job in looking after Somalia.
aan leeyahay waan kugu faraxsannahay
Mr. President, you have done an excellent job fighting Ethiopia and Somaliland. I don't know if that's added parenthetically, and we are happy about
shaqada
it.
fiican aad qabatay in dadka Soomaaliya iyo dadka meel kasta ku nool
You spoke to Somalians dispersed across the world that you are there to look after Somalia.
aad dareensiisay si kasta anaga aan
However
u
weak
dhibanahay
Somalia
Soomaali
is,
haddii aan nahay
or is a failed state,
waxaan nahay
we
dad
Somalians are resilient people who can fight against
leh,
all
dad
odds.
wadankooda aqoonsan
People who
dad
love their
wadankoodii
country,
aan weligood
Somalia. We are people who will never allow someone else to steal our land.
This is so weird, man.
danger laga gelin karin
Therefore,
marka
I congratulate Somalian Americans and other
Waxaan-
Somalis across the globe
reer Minnesota iyo Soomaalida meel kasta ku nool adeerkaya hadda mar dhow ka hadlaayay idinkaga
for showing a
hambalyeynaya
remarkable
sida
level
aad
of unity
wada-
against Ethiopia and Somaliland.
wada duuban tihiin sida aad kulligiin u
The way
garab
you
istaagteen
all rallied behind our president because he needs us today.
madaxweynaheena because wuu u baahan yahay in
Somalia is. I'm guessing the genocidal mantra is put in parenthetical, added by the translator here. Somalia is for Somalis only. That's pretty racist. As over 45% of Somalia's population are not even ethnic Somalis. So Somalia is for Somalis only, even though around half of the population is not even ethnic Somalis. So what? You gotta ethnically cleanse those people, I guess. I don't know. Is that what Ilhan is? What's weird is if you said this in any Western nation, this is just for our people. You're racist and a bigot. She could say it about Somalia. That's weird.
Soomaaliya waa hal
Somalia
walaalaan
is
wada
one
nahay
nation.
dhulkeena
land
lagama
cannot be
kala
divided.
qaybsanaayo dhulal baa naga
Ethiopia and Kenya have stolen and continue to occupy the Somali region state, which belongs to Somalia. So they're occupiers. And so she's in Congress to get Ethiopia and Kenya, keep them from occupying Somali territory because it belongs to
good.
Somalia.
That's such a
kanaan
relief. Man.
raadsanayna insha Allah mar maalinta laakiin inta aan haysano hadda
We will liberate the occupied territories stolen from Somalia, Djibouti, Somaliland, and the northeastern province of Kenya that belong to
lama
Greater Somalia.
lama kala qaybina
So the U.S. is, I guess, she's in Congress to help Somalia defeat all these other nations and take back lost Somali territory.
marka waa mahadsantihiin dhammaantiin sidaad ii sharaftiin oo markasta aad iigu soo dhawaysiin ilaahay ha idin sharfo asalaamu calaykum waraxmatullahi wabarakatu
Some of her associations are interesting. So check out this retweet. Now, you can't put a whole lot of, if this were the only red flag, the people that she's retweeting or responding to, then I wouldn't think much of it. But when it's combined with all the other stuff, you start to see a pattern. So check this out. So this is her responding to Mujahid Stafio Ibn Islan El whatever. She says, so he had said, attention Ilhan Omar, we the Somali people urge you to take legal action against cessationists for defamation of character. You have a serious case, even Elon Musk, blah, 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 blah. So he's saying stuff. And she replies, unfortunately, in our country, we can't sue people for defamation because we are public officials. I'm confident that the people I represent will never fall for the lies that are out there to smear me, like this one, based where we just actually look at your speeches and so on. I am confident that the people I represent will never fail. So she's responding to this guy he's saying, hey, you need to sue the people who are criticizing you. You need to sue them. And she's saying, it's sad. Unfortunately, I can't sue them because I'm a public official and people are allowed to call me out like this. Because keep in mind, people come from countries where you're not allowed to criticize your leaders without being executed or tossed in prison or something like that. So he's like, hey, why aren't you going after these people who are coming after you? But check this guy out. So this is Mujahid Stafio. Here's another tweet by this guy. There is power with numbers. Breed like rats and establish global dominance. Inshallah, the 21st century will see the great rise of Islam. Glory be to Allah. So that's this guy's marching orders for Muslims around the world.
Big shocker.
Some of you might remember this. This was a clip from a plane, and it was a Christians were singing some Christian song, and a guy was playing the guitar, and Christians were singing a song, and the little thing there at the bottom says, "Worshiping Jesus 30,000 feet in the air." She says, "I think my family and I should have a prayer session next time I am on a plane. How do you think it will end?" Turns out it was later disclosed this was a charter flight. Christians reserved the entire plane for a mission trip. She's clearly offended at this. And I understand it. So she probably didn't know this is a chartered flight. And so let's just assume that this is a normal flight and Christians just start singing music. In that situation, reason to say, hey guys, hey, I'm trying to sleep here. Could you stop? Point is, check this out. This is when it gets decided in Minneapolis that they can blast the call to prayers over the city.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And it's a completely different reaction. Mashallah! That means God has willed it. God has willed it. In Minneapolis to make history with Muslim prayer call 5 times a day. Yes, now we have the prayer call blasting over your city. So think about this. I said you can make a case. Now, if someone started singing on a plane, I really wouldn't care. If I were trying to sleep or something like that, might be annoying. I'd probably deal with it. Charter flight, you have no basis for complaining about anything. They can sing the entire time. It's their flight. The only case you can make is this is what's called a captive audience, meaning they're not an audience who shows up to hear something. They're stuck in a particular place, and all of a sudden you're making them hear your stuff because they don't have a choice, right? Okay, if you made the case, if you want to say this is a captive audience, they're stuck there, and they have to hear this because they're stuck where they are, and you want to say that's wrong for you to be blasting your religious whatever to a captive audience. If you wanted to say that, okay, say that. But how do you then turn around and cheer and say mashallah for seeing that the call to prayer is going to be blasted over a city? What is it? That's a captive audience. If you're in an apartment and they're blasting the call to prayer, you have no choice about it. You have to sit there and hear this 5 times per day. So what can we see here? Ilhan Omar has a problem, a serious problem, if any non-Muslims have a captive audience and they promote their ideas to a captive audience. If it's Muslims blasting people with the call to prayer and it's a captive audience, there's nowhere you go. You're already in your apartment. You have to listen to the call to prayer blasting. She cheers for it and she loves it. That really, really makes it sound like she's an Islamic supremacist. That it doesn't sound like she's just a congressman seeking the welfare of everyone. She sounds like an Islamic supremacist when she says things like this. I am very honored to have the chance that our president of Somalia, she calls the president of Somalia our president. Oh my goodness. Let me back this up. This is nuts, man. This is a congresswoman. This is a U.S. congresswoman calling the president of Somalia our president.
This is the problem with these people, with people from this culture, often from Muslim backgrounds and from such cultures, where they feel like, where they act like they are naturally from that country, so that is their actual home country, and that is who they are, no matter what. The country that they are in, even if they're politicians now and represent this country, is only kind of their formal, official country. Mm-hmm. This is a very common sentiment among many of these groups. I know this very well from Germany, where the Turkish immigrant population has always been like that. When you ask them what their country is, it is Turkey. Although they are in Germany and they work in Germany, they live in Germany, they might even have German citizenship. They might not even have a Turkish citizenship anymore. It's still, my country is Turkey. Yeah, I'm just in Germany for whatever. This is a general attitude, and it's pretty bad.
madaxweyne xasan sheekh maxamuud inaan maanta ku soo dhaweyno Minneapolis.
Let us give him a warm welcome, Minneapolis, in Somali.
Aniga iyo madaxweynaha special relationship aan qabnaa.
Have a special relationship.
Aniga adeeraan ugu wacaa asigana
I call him uncle and he calls me his girl.
madaxweyne sidii qof kasta
Welcome
uu
to your
yiri
home. Our home is your
ku
home.
soo dhawow Minneapolis.
Welcome to Minneapolis.
aad aan ugu
We're
faraxsanahay
very happy
in
that
maanta
Hassan is
madaxweynaheena
our
aad tahay.
president. So she's in Minneapolis right now, welcoming the Somali president and declaring that he is their president.
Somalia dadka meeshaan wada joogo dhan waa
It is home to all the people gathered here. Wait. Somalia is the home to all the people gathered here in Minneapolis where they have come as migrants and refugees.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
Somalia is our home. So she's a congresswoman in the U.S., but Somalia is actually her home. Somalia is our home.
Exactly
It
what I
is
meant.
home to all the people gathered here. So all the Somalis here living in the U.S., all you U.S. naturalized U.S. citizens who fled Somalia because you didn't want to live there or because you were forced out, and who were brought into the U.S. and who were granted citizenship by the U.S., your home is Somalia. This is not your home. We do not feel that it is far from us. Somalia is our heart. It is in our hearts. We always think about that Sharia-compliant hellhole that we had to flee. It's where our real heart is. We must fix our roads. It's a worthy goal. I am an American migrant in the U.S. Congress. But I am a Somali girl. A girl with your lineage. A girl with your language. A girl with your religion. That was a young child taken from her country. Taken from... No, she makes it sound like she's kidnapped. She makes it sound like she kidnapped, right? I was taken from my country. Your family took you from your country. Do not be murdered. Do not be murdered in the name of Allah, okay? That misses her country. So hey, look at this. She's a U.S. citizen serving in Congress, and she says she wishes to live in Somalia. There was a young child taken from her country that misses her country and wishes to live there and share with its people. I am hopeful in the future that me and my children will be able to raise our kids in this land, Somalia, where I was born and raised and had to flee because all the violence caused by Islam. To make that possible, there is a lot that we need work on together to make our land... What's your land? The United States? No, Somalia. That's our land. To make our land a more stable and prosperous place. That is felt by all. It's pretty wild. And you did have some reactions from people. I'll just put up one. So this is DeSantis when he saw this clip. He said, "Expel from Congress, denaturalize, and deport." It's pretty harsh, right? So expel her from Congress, denaturalize her so she's no longer an American citizen, and deport her. Wow, 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 wow.
That's pretty rough.
It's pretty rough. I really, really find this fascinating that you can manipulate people to such an extent that they'll accept this. And not only accept it, but view anyone who questions what's going on. If you even question it, you're evil. So if you have any problem with a woman whose family had to flee Somalia because of the violence, come to the U.S., become a U.S. citizen, go to school, get elected to Congress, and just go around declaring, hey, it's actually Somalia that's calling the shots here. I'm just going to do the will of Somalia here. I'm working for Somalia. I'm in Congress so that I can pull the strings to get the U.S. to defend Somalia against, Kenya and Ethiopia and so on. That's what I'm here for. And if you question that, which guess what? She's not supposed to be saying this kind of stuff. But if you point it out, the only possible reason you could have for that is race or something like that, or Islamophobia. That's the only reason you'd be concerned about a person openly admitting their allegiance to another country and admit that they are in the U.S. government specifically to have the shots called for them by another country. Anyway, think about how weird this is. She says in these video clips that she has a special relationship with the president of Somalia, and she calls him uncle, and he calls her my girl, and so on, and they have this good relationship, and she's saying she wants to live there, and it's like, wait a minute, you're friends with the government now, and the government loves you so much that they're basically giving you orders on what you're supposed to do, and you're saying you want to live over there. Wait, if you're in good with the government, then and you want to live there, seems like you should be okay, and yet you're still here. Kind of seems like maybe they want you here, right? Like, no, don't come back here. You're in a really good spot. Here, check this out.
Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota.
You see that deliberate Freudian slip.
Okay, that's good.
Whereas elected members of Congress take an oath to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. So we were just talking about what oath you're required to take to become a citizen. There's also your oath to become a congressperson, right? So she has taken 2 oaths of allegiance, and she has made it clear that her real allegiance is to Somalia and to Islam.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar took an oath of allegiance to the United States upon becoming a citizen, declaring, I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen. Whereas on January 27, 2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements.
Dang. So that's interesting. This is do you know what she is? Is she a senator or a congresswoman?
I think just congresswoman. Yeah.
Okay. So congresswoman here actually saying it's treasonous. So she's guilty of treason. Wow.
Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions. Whereas Representative Omar assured the Somalians she spoke to, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia.
Dang, she's calling that treason.
Whereas Representative Omar continued, for as long as I am in U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others. Sleep in comfort knowing I am here to protect the interest of Somalia from inside the U.S. system.
Does sound pretty bad.
You would think there's a strong case here. It looks like it, right?
Yeah.
It looks like it because that's correct. So you are supposed to renounce allegiances other than the United States, and there she is as an actual congresswoman, repeatedly referring to the president of her former country as my president or our president, saying that she's working for Somalia, and all of that. It sounds really, really terribly problematic.
If you're just openly declaring your complete hypocrisy on things like, if Christians do it, I have a problem with it, but Muslims do it, and I say, yay! That's pretty bad. If you're actually saying that, this other country is sending you messages on what to do to defend their interests against the interests of other nations, you have no place in Congress. I would say that. I would say get the heck out of Congress. Get her out of there.
Get the heck out of here.
And I would really say at the end of the day, Muslims, if you want people to not be suspicious of you when Muslims become politicians, get some better politicians who aren't like this, right? Get some politicians who aren't like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Keith Ellison and so on. It's like, get some people who don't come across as people who are trying to sabotage the country from within.
But then who's going to infiltrate the government and sabotage it?
That's true.
See?
Whereas George Washington warned in his farewell address of 1796 to guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism, and further declared citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. The name of American, which belongs to you in your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discriminations. Whereas these statements...
I didn't understand anything she just quoted from George Washington, except that it was some sort of patriotic warning. I got that. But other than that,
I'm glad that I'm not alone in that.
Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
by Representative Omar clearly violate the oath she took as an elected member of Congress to defend and protect the United States Constitution. Whereas Representative Omar has exhibited the treasonous tendencies George Washington warned about, and her actions must be condemned by all members of Congress who adhere to the oath they took upon assuming office. And whereas by openly admitting her efforts to advance Somalia's interest using her position as a United States representative, Representative Omar has revealed herself to be a foreign agent.
Wow. But she's right? I mean, it's like, lots of the politicians when they're complaining about someone on the opposite side of the aisle, I'm always thinking, you just hate the other person. Like, what's she saying that's wrong here?
That's the funny thing. Like when somebody like her makes these complaints about Ilhan Omar, people will go for, this is you're just going after her because she's a Muslim. This is just because of Islamophobia. How about we stop that and focus on what she's actually saying? Is she wrong or not? Or is she right or not? She's right in what she's saying, it looks like.
Acting on behalf of a foreign government. Now, therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee of the Budget and the Committee on Education and the Workforce.
I mean, I would actually say get her out of Congress. You should not be in Congress. If you violate your oath of office in this sort of severe way, I would say you should not be in Congress. I do not trust you. I already don't trust politicians enough. And then when I see this, it makes it even worse. So you need to restore faith in the system at some point and get rid of people who are openly declaring allegiance to other nations and saying that they are using the U.S. government as basically their puppet to carry out the will of a foreign nation.
I don't know. As soon as you bring up Jim Jones, like it's almost comedic how terrible. I don't know. Maybe it's just so comedic now that it's because he lived in our time. Mm-hmm. He was a contemporary. Maybe that's the only reason. I don't know. I don't know. That's yeah. Yes.
That's I mean, what's crazy is they have like the recordings of that dude. Man,
yeah,
that's some messed up stuff. I'm glad some people like wised up at the last moment and got the heck out of there. But the stories even of like some of the survivors, but like they realize they're going to run, and like it turns out their wife and kid had already taken the Kool-Aid and stuff, and crazy stuff.
Ooh,
Says there's a Kent Hovind video going around saying Islam was started by Catholics to regain the holy city, but Islam got too big and said, "Forget you." Yeah, that seems really stupid. Seems like a
that's really
stupid
dumb.
conspiracy theory. I've even seen people sending me, David, Islam was invented by the Jesuits, and I was like, the Jesuits didn't exist for several more centuries after Islam spread. So, are you saying that the Jesuits had time machines? Because that's the only way they started Islam.
Yeah, I understand these historical grievances with the Catholics and others, but you can really take things too far sometimes.
Yeah, and no,
And
it's a similar issue with like Jews and so on. Once you develop an unhealthy obsession with some group, you start seeing they're behind everything, right? Like anything bad in the world, that group's behind it. Someone just destroyed my car. That's them. They did it. They did it.
yeah. And Kent Hovind. Anyway,
Powerful. It's powerful stuff. I think Somalia has a president and a prime minister. This is the prime minister, but there's a photo of Ilhan Omar sitting with him, right beside him, as he explains who the Jews are. The signs of Allah manifest in Gaza. Y'all got that? And so you can see the picture up there in the corner. That's just someone just put a picture there. No, matter of fact, there are two pictures. There are two pictures of Ilhan Omar sitting with the prime minister. Allah displays to us clearly how these people, the Jews, are heartless, and how they are merciless, and how they are immoral, and how they are the descendants of monkeys and pigs. Allah is showing us this in what they're doing in Gaza. Can hear the Allahu Akbar in the background. So the Jews,
this enrages me. The thing is, it doesn't enrage me because it surprises me or because it's like it's shocking to hear what he's saying. What enrages me about this is that this is extremely common. This is very much expected. This is like a regular thing to say among Muslim populations like these, and people just don't want to see it. And it is pointed out all the time that Muslims have a huge problem with Jews, and that this is a very common narrative among Muslims, and yet most of the world just refuses to see it. Most of the world just looks away and acts like that never happened. And all the hate is just about politics. It's just about land. It's just about Israel. I'm sorry, but if people out there don't understand and don't know that the average Muslim society is extremely anti-Jewish to such an extent that they would happily allow and justify an entire genocide of all the Jews in the world, then you just don't know anything. You are ignorant. You are delusional. I'm sorry, but it is really that simple. It's really that simple. In the Muslim world, in the Muslim population, in Muslim societies, it is totally acceptable. It's completely acceptable to make excuses for and justify the eradication of Jews, because this is not just something that is politics to them. It is something that is religiously motivated and promised and justified. And if you think that Ilhan Omar doesn't harbor these very same ideas, and that she doesn't have this religious hate for Jews, then again, this is naive. It is ignorant. Of course she does. Of course, behind the scenes, while sitting together with Jewish people in Congress, of course, behind the scenes, she believes that the day will come when the Jews will be exterminated at the hands of the Muslims. It's just, this is what Islam is. This is what Islamists are. And people should understand it. And it's not just about the Jews, but it is extremely bad when it comes to the Jews.
Yeah, and for me, the creepiest thing about that, because I'm like you, it's not shocking or something. Oh my goodness, here's a guy who says that the Jews are descendants of apes and pigs. We're quite familiar with that. This is the prime minister of Somalia, and Ilhan Omar meets with him apparently regularly, and she acknowledges that the leaders of Somalia are telling her what to do to carry out Somali interests. And this is one of the guys who would be calling the shots for a U.S. congresswoman. That's wild stuff. That's really, really wild stuff. That these are the guys, and we saw her like retweeting a guy who calls for who tells Muslims to breed like rats so they can take over the world.
That's a good word used by
His
him.
words, breed like rats. Echoing Erudite here says, many not aware or believe Jim Jones was an atheist. Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to see his writings, because you look for signs, because he's claiming that he believes what he says, but you can have total fake grifters and so on doing this sort of stuff. So I'd be kind of 50-50. If you ask me, based on what little I know, which is, I think I watched a documentary about it years ago. That's the extent of my knowledge. But if you ask me, did Jim Jones really think he's this guy, this prophet, or does he know he's fake? I'd be kind of 50-50 on that. But if I looked into it, I might find from letters or something or more investigation, you might be able to find out whether the guy's nuts or it's all a scam to him.
He started out as a Christian preacher, and he had a church, and then he led that whole church into a completely different direction and went toward how we need socialism to change the world and make things different. And from there, it just became weirder and weirder into how he gets special revelations, and he has a special plan that he needs to reveal, but it's a very sensitive one. I don't know. It's just the guy became progressively more insane in whatever he preached, and I don't know. It looks like he may have been actually mentally ill, or it was just a giant scam. But the fact that he made that they did a mass suicide, including himself, it looks like he actually believed what he did.
Yeah, that's either. So even that, I'm still thinking. Yeah, I would say that leans towards him taking this stuff seriously.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't think it's 50-50 anymore. But I wouldn't swing all the way towards, yeah, I believe he was sincere, because that could just be a guy who understands, hey, these guys are going to come and arrest me and they're going to lock me in prison. I'd rather die. So it could be like suicide, but I'm taking all these people with me just to demonstrate my contempt to all you people who thought you could take me down. Because there are people who are pretty brutal like that.
I'm just reading about. Sorry, I was absent because I was reading about Jim Jones. Because somebody said he was. Wasn't he shot? So I wanted to check. Because I'm pretty sure that he participated in the suicide. But yeah, it's he did participate. He inflicted a gunshot suicide. So yeah.
And there were what's crazy is, so his community had moved down there to that compound in South America and so on, but he still had people here in the U.S. I believe it was his son. I think it was his son that I saw in an interview, because the orders got called in to his. There was a house that was housing several of them. The orders got called in for them to commit suicide. I think it was his son who said he came in there with some others from the group. And like they saw blood leaking from the ceiling or something because someone had killed themselves and the blood was leaking through, something like that, or something. There was all this blood and stuff. And he said he basically had some common sense, and he says, guys, no one do anything stupid right now, okay? And he actually he actually took some steps to make sure no one's killing themselves over this stuff. And so it's like, seems like he might have understood. That guy, the son, maybe.
What's funny is he also
figured
had
it out
ties.
right then.
He also had ties to the Soviet Union. He had ties to the Communist Party, and I think wanted his belongings to be donated or to be given to the Communist Party, which just makes everything a little bit weird.
Brigitte Gabriel, who is also an immigrant, and she's just commenting on kind of the oath you're supposed to take here. But let's check this out.
But she's a Christian, and she's also against Islam, which means that she's white and a racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look how white she is.
Let me make something clear. I'm a naturalized citizen. When we become naturalized citizens, we raise our hand in the swearing ceremony and we say, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, forsaking all others. I don't give a flying kite what country we were raised in. We came to America to be Americans, to become Americans. We pledge loyalty to America. That's how the immigrants that made it all the way through the history of our nation, that's how they did it. My children don't speak a word of Arabic because I wanted to make sure my children were Americans and they understood that they are number one Americans before.
Wow, not a word of Arabic. That's pretty extreme. If she wants her kids to follow in her footsteps, seems like it'd be cool for them to learn a little bit of Arabic so they can respond to some of this stuff. It makes sense to want people to learn Arabic for purposes of criticizing Islam.
Anything else. Now, listening to Ilhan Omar talk about the Somali community, let's not forget, it was out of that Somali community, her community, that 43 terrorists went to the Middle East to fight in the holy war against America. The first American suicide bomber was a Somali American from that community. We need to make it very clear to our people that we need representation in Congress, those who represent America and no other nation.
So the issue.
Represent America and no other nation.
She's quite brutal.
Yeah. So anyway, we got some different perspectives. Does seem pretty messed up what's going on in Congress, and the fact that like half the country would defend her having that position to the death, like being a foreign agent. They would just automatically, shame on you for criticizing that.
So, do you still argue, as you did yesterday, that there's nothing to worry about for the West?
Yeah, that's what I said yesterday. I said there's nothing to be concerned about. All is well. Just sit back, keep your mouth shut, and enjoy the show.
Wow.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Guys, if you are affiliated or speaking on behalf of the Council on American Islamic Relations, I do not trust you at all, period. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Muslim, non-Muslim, whoever. If you're associated with those guys, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, I do not trust you because they're that obviously evil. And that is an Islamic supremacist organization that is trying to silence all critics of Islam to get the sort of society that you have in the UK where people can go around just raping whoever they want and everyone's going to keep their mouth shut about it.
Ain't gonna follow no child molester, sex offender, private pretender. Ain't gonna follow no child molester.
Islam's not for me. Islam's not for me.
Islam's
Not for me.